My one friend believes in a conspiracy theory about coronavirus really being caused by another planet that is crashing into our atmosphere. That's kind of interesting. Kind of on board. Hey, Aubrey.
Hey, man, which planet is it? It's crashed into our atmosphere.
I don't know. What's this?
Like, let's just get that. Let's settle that first.
Yeah, BDB91. Do you have any like details about that?
Wait, which one is it?
It's someone in the chat. BDB91. Oh. My one friend
I
believes
thought that was the name of the planet.
No. It's the guy in the chat. He says, my one friend believes in a conspiracy theory about coronavirus really being caused by another planet that is crashing into our atmosphere.
Before I
that sounds kind of interesting to me.
Conspiracy theory. Yeah, I would like to know more, but before I weigh in, I would like to know which planet it is.
Yeah.
Which planet is currently crashing into our atmosphere? Hey, can you see me okay? I can't see you. Is that by design?
Yeah, that's okay, because my camera is broadcasting me to the stream, so you'd have to like tune into the Twitch channel.
To the stream and the streets.
Exactly.
Simultaneously.
What everyone said, welcome Aubrey Sitterson to the show, everybody, to the stream. What a wonderful surprise.
Is it? We've been talking about it for weeks.
Yeah,
maybe a surprise for them.
No, I talked about it multiple times today. You're right. It's not really.
My pal Ramon Villalobos. So today is my Beef Bros Media Day. And I did a Reddit AMA this morning, and I'm talking to you now, and a little bit later I'm talking to Ramon Villalobos on his podcast, Mex Flintalo. And he was I got a text from him this morning because he was very stoked because he just wondering what our pal Rob was up to on his stream today, checked in and saw that I was showing up. So listen, man, people are talking.
Yeah,
the streets are buzzing.
Ramon is cool.
He's very cool. Yeah, man. I'm stoked to talk to those guys. I'm stoked to talk to you. We've known each other for a long time.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to fix something midstream here. This is not very smart of me. But it's cool for me to be talking to you, Aubrey, because way back in like 2013, 2014, when I was really back into getting into wrestling again, one of the main things I like to watch on YouTube, Straight Shoot with Aubrey Sitterson. And after
the world's smartest wrestling
talk show. And I would always think, maybe one day I'll get to the level where I could be a cool, like a guest on Straight Shoot. That'd be so cool.
This was well before your pivot to like very, very powerful leftist shit poster. Like this was years before that transformation. It really is a Cinderella story, I think.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I talked about that kind of stuff, but somehow over that time, I'm still not sure how it happened, but people actually started listening to me.
I think you found your voice, man.
Yeah.
It's been a beautiful thing to watch. Did you ever come on Straight Shoot?
I did towards the end. We talked about the NJPW tag league. The World Tag League. Oh yeah,
which was awful, I'm sure, because they usually are.
Yeah, you were not that into it, I remember. Yeah. Yeah, well that's another thing. That was kind of part of my my journey to becoming I was working in an ad agency at the time. Just completely miserable. And when I lost my job at the ad agency, one thing that I really wanted to do was like become a pro wrestling journalist. Like a shoemaker, one of those guys. Like that was my main ambition.
I thought you meant like a shoemaker in that is a defunct job and you cannot make any money in it anymore.
That is true. That is true.
I want to become a wrestling journalist. So I guess the first thing you need to do is build a time machine.
Yeah.
Build a time machine. That's step number one. Travel back to like the 1930s. That would be good. You could write for a newspaper.
But that was when I started like getting into freelance writing though. Like one of the first things I was doing was wrestling journalism. Talking about I did that piece in Vice about the Ultimate Warrior when they were doing like the Warrior Week and everything.
I remember that. Yeah,
and I wrote a bunch of wrestling pieces around that time. That's how I started. That's how I got like a blue check on Twitter. That's how I started like getting my name out there in bylines and stuff. So it was a pro wrestling journalist guy. And there's such interesting parallels and crossovers with like wrestling and politics too that it
used to be such a big thing to get a blue check. Now I feel like it's a scarlet letter, right? Like I feel kind of embarrassed that I have one, and I feel like I need to qualify. It's like no. Listen, I got it before. Like it was a thing that only assholes had. I'm kind of embarrassed of mine.
A little bit, yeah. But it's okay. How are you doing? Man?
I'm great. Good? I'm really good. Yeah. I still feel, I'm trying to get better about it, but I still feel, by getting better about it, I say now that I just acknowledge it aggressively. But no, like I feel guilty about saying that I'm doing great, right? So I feel like I need to qualify it that,
Yeah.
all things considered, because there is a global pandemic and nightmarish things happening on every continent
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
are just too numerous to list off here. But the fact of the matter is, man, I'm doing really well. I'm very fortunate. We are happy and healthy and busy, and
Brothers,
I don't know. That's like this past year has really, and I've other friends of mine. So this is anecdotal evidence, but other friends of mine have said the same thing too. Is that the past year has really kind of driven home how fortunate so many of us are.
Yes, absolutely.
And yeah, and so like it's kind of really allowed me to recalibrate kind of how I see things and how I look at things, and because I am so fortunate, I am so privileged, and um, you know, confronted with all of the horrors that we are on a daily basis on social media and television, and if you read magazines or wherever you get your information, it's it really brings things into perspective. And so, yeah, man, I'm doing great. I absolutely cannot complain. The Beef Bros Kickstarter, that's what's kind of consuming me right now, is going gangbusters.
Yeah,
We're
yeah. I'm
funded
playing
in,
the
like,
video right now silently while you're talking. So
oh,
it's just
cool,
playing in the
good.
background.
Good. Yeah, man. We were funded in like 5 days. So the book's definitely happening.
That's
It's
amazing.
if you give so a lot of times people are hesitant to sign up to Kickstarter, even though it doesn't charge you unless the goal is met. Like people are kind of hesitant, but yeah, we're funded. So if you contribute, you're getting this comic, right? There's no question about it.
Yeah.
The question right now is how much everybody's getting paid. Because and that's why I'm still flogging this thing so relentlessly and aggressively, because a lot of Kickstarters, they do stretch goals where if you hit this, people at this level get a sticker, and if we hit this goal, we'll change the printing process or add some extra pages, or do like a nicer logo or something like that. And like that stuff's all fine and good, but I know for me, if I'm contributing to a Kickstarter, I'm contributing money because I want to help these creators make great art. And the fact of the matter is, in the comic book industry, like so many others, creators are habitually and institutionally undervalued, underpaid, and exploited. And so, it is unabashedly a leftist comic book. And I think it would be foolish and disingenuous and ugly, quite frankly, if we made a bunch of extra money on it and we didn't split it amongst the team. So that's what we're doing, man. Like, so if we're creeping up on like 23,000 now, if we hit 25,000, and regardless, any extra money is going to be split equitably among the team. But if we hit 25,000, everybody gets like a steady, like a proportionate raise on their page rate, and I start making a page rate as well, which would be really nice for me,
of course,
personally, because I'm not getting anything per page, as of the funding goals. And we did that on purpose too, because I'd never run a Kickstarter before, and the most important thing to me was that the book happen, and that my co-creator and my collaborators get paid. And so if we hit the 25,000, I'll get a page rate. Everybody else will get a raise. And if we hit 35,000, which here's the thing, man, we've got a week left, which isn't a ton of time, but a lot of pledges come in at the end. And, people kind of wait till the end to see how much they're going to pledge and stuff like that. So it's totally possible. If we hit 35,000, that's what I'm really excited about. We're going to be able to fund the creative costs of issue 2. We can get going. Very cool, man. So it's going gangbusters. I've got that.
And I'll put the link in the chat here for everyone.
Yes, please.
We watched the trailer. We're hearing from Aubrey about Beef Bros. If you do want to contribute to the project, here's the link where you can do it.
Perfect. Thank you, man. And it's easy to find. If you just search my name and Beef Bros, you go to aubreysitterson.com, or my Twitter, it's plastered with nothing but. But yeah, man, I've got Beef Bros. I've got some unannounced projects that are coming out next year. So, Beef Bros is something new and something different for me. It's on Kickstarter, and I'm really excited about it. And it's been going faboo. It's been going really well. But I'm not abandoning traditional comics either. And that's the thing that the comic book industry, like a lot of industries, in the COVID era has been kind of going through some growing pains, or I guess growing pains isn't the right word. They just been having pains,
Yeah.
just aches and pains related to COVID, and people have been worried, and a lot of people have been taken to Kickstarter because there was a long period this year when comics were not being produced and shipped to comic book shops, right? The only distributor for comics, Diamond, shut down completely. So there just were no new comic books coming out. And so then, so then there's a lag and then a backlog, and a lot of people have been taking to Kickstarter, and people have been talking about, just abandoning the direct market and stuff like that. And that's not at all where I'm at, man. I'm stoked about the direct market still. I love having my comics in comic book shops. And I've got 3 books coming out. They're unannounced as of yet, but I got 3 books coming out next year. So I'm very busy, man.
Yeah. And so like, we talked about how we kind of got to know each other a little bit in like 2014, a couple years back. And it's interesting because everyone, I think, especially since 2016, has been kind of like on a radicalization journey. And I think you're no different, right? And it's been interesting for me also, as you've gotten more into the comic book world and started to like make more of a name for yourself, you've also been focusing on these like labor issues within these creative spaces and kind of trying to use what platform you have to kind of make a sort of change in the way the economic model works as it relates to making comics, right? So it's interesting to see this Kickstarter experiment. It would be really cool to see it succeed because it's
thanks,
really
man.
interesting.
I really appreciate that. It is something I think a lot about, and I think the kind of double-edged sword of thinking about this stuff is you think about it and you do what you can, and the more you think about it and the more you do, the more you realize that you're not doing enough. Like that's, and I think that's good. I think that's a sign that you're headed in the right direction. But it is kind of a frustrating thing because, yeah, man, it's always been something I talked about. But with the Kickstarter feels like for the first time really kind of putting a flag in the sand and saying, look, there's a way to do this that isn't ugly. Right? Like there's a way to do this where the people who create the work maintain ownership of it, where everybody working on the book gets not only paid fairly, right? Like a good rate. And the rates we're giving on Beef Bros are and they are solid middle of the road rates, right? Which is to say they're not the highest rates that anybody working on the book has ever received, but they're also well higher than rates that they have frequently accepted in the past, myself included. So we're really excited to show, look, there's a way to make comics with good politics, right? Because it's a big part of it too that we haven't talked about, like the actual politics of the thing. But to make superhero comics specifically, right, that scratch all the itches, that give you what you want from this big bombastic form of entertainment, but strip away all of like the ugly, like reactionary and like hierarchical foundations, right? That like, and like the nasty assumptions that a lot of these projects are kind of predicated on, even if they're not explicitly about them, to get rid of all of that and produce that comic book in a way that gets everybody paid, that doesn't, like it's, people call them IP farms, and that ain't far off, man. They're it's sharecropping. Like IP farm is generous, really, is what it is. You go to a place, you say, look, here's my idea, here's the book I want to do. And they say, great, we'll take most of that, but we'll give you a page rate, and maybe we'll throw you some ducats if we make something big out of it. But that's at our discretion, right? That's horrific. It's absolutely awful.
Well, and like there's a long history of that in the comic book industry, right? Going all the way back to like the creation of like the most iconic characters that we know about, right?
Of course. Yeah, man. And so like to show, look, there's a way that we can do this where the creators own their work, where everybody working on the book not only gets a fair rate, but they get to share in the success of the book. And that's crucial too, right? If they're like, because our funding goal for Kickstarter, right? That's just what we need to get the thing made, right? There's no profit there. Once we go above, once we go above our goal, which we have, that creates profit, and then so it creates this kind of moral question of, well, what do we do with the profit? And the only equitable, ethical, moral answer is split it among the team, man. Split it among everybody who worked on this thing. So to show that there's a way to do that and actually find success, and find a market for yourself and get this stuff out in front of people, it's invigorating, man. It's really I mentioned earlier about like kind of recalibrating my views and how I see things. And this is another this is a bit of 2020. Man, you might say hindsight is 2020.
Ooh,
2020 has been a big year
very
for
nice.
me for recalibrating and relooking at how I'm viewing the world around me and the institutions that I'm navigating, and kind of figuring out the path and figuring out how to navigate this stuff. And Kickstarter has really, like, I'm still so close. Not just so close to it. I'm in the midst of it, right?
Yeah.
I don't really have my learnings kind
Yeah.
of like solidified yet, but I know there are some.
Working
I've
on
got
it.
a lot of ideas, and I think once I stop moving at hummingbird speed trying to promote this thing, I'm going to be spending the holidays. Again, just think about how fortunate and grateful I am for all of this, right? But also figuring out what's next and how to use this, because this is powerful.
Yeah.
This is potentially revolutionary for the comic book industry. And listen, I'm not acting like I'm the first person to make a comic on Kickstarter, right?
Yeah.
But I think that we could and should see a lot more transparency in terms of how people are doing their business on Kickstarter. Because I think comics is interesting because it's got a long history, and this is, I think comics like wrestling is useful as to look at it as kind of like a microcosm of capitalism at large, right? And there are a lot of examples. I'm sure you can just rattle a bunch off the top of your head, especially with wrestling stuff, because we've talked about these. But with comics, it's interesting because what typically happens in comics is people get big enough and powerful enough and wealthy enough and privileged enough that, as creators, that they can then become management, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah. That's like the goal, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Climbing
and
that
here's the
ladder.
thing, and this isn't me trying to be a firebrand and like point fingers at people, because the fact of the matter is, if you want success in comics, that's been what you have to do. You have to, because there's not enough money in doing work for hire comics. And the idea of being a self-sustaining creator-owned comics creator is a relatively new one, right? It's for many, many years, and still primarily today. If you want to make your nut in comics, you have to work for Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
Not exclusively, but you have to do it, because they're where you get the page rates, they're where you get the big distribution, there's where you get the media attention, all of it, and it feeds into the other stuff. So if you wanted to find success, you had to become management. You had to start doing the same shit that, can I swear?
Yeah. Please do. Yeah. Go for it.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Balls. You had to start doing
This is a bad
same...
boy kind of stream. It's not really a family friendly, like nice thing. This is like a really kind of dangerous situation.
Schlong.
Oh,
how about that one?
Oh shit. Oh man. That's maybe taking it too far, frankly. But
what was I saying? I'm trying to talk about serious labor issues here, Rob. Oh yeah, man. It used to be that if you wanted to find a place for yourself, establish a place for yourself, you had to start doing these same loathsome, odious things, right? It's one of the, and this is not just true in comics, it's true everywhere, man.
Yeah,
if you're working a job and you're like, you know what, I'm an honest worker, and I come in and I do my, I sell my time and they pay me to do X, Y, and Z, and I do it and I go home, and this is okay, right? I'm not exploiting anybody, I'm not hurting anybody, like, I'm not part of the problem. But then, well, what if you'd like to actually get a home? What if you'd like to actually buy a car? Like, to do these things, well, you need more money. If you need more money, you need to get promoted, and then you become complicit, right? And that's how they get you. And Kickstarter, Kickstarter is not a perfect platform before anybody gets in the comment, there aren't any, right? But Kickstarter does provide and is providing an opportunity for people like us, for people like me and Tyrell, and a ton of other folks. And Tyrell, again, I don't want to make this seem like I'm some kind of visionary trailblazer. Tyrell, my co-creator on Beef Bros, has run like half a dozen of them before, right?
Yeah.
So this is nothing new. But it is exciting, and it is revolutionary, and it is, I don't know. Is it churlish to talk about silver linings of the COVID situation? Is that ugly to do?
I don't think so. I mean, we all have to be taking finding these lessons.
You are, if nothing else, an arbiter of good taste, Rob. So
yeah, absolutely.
I'll take your word for it.
I'm kind of an influencer. I'm a big deal, and people in the chat understand this. People that watch the stream understand this. So I think they'll go along with us on this.
Rob Rousseau.
Yeah, exactly.
Man. I think that a silver lining to the very dark cloud that is, one of the silver linings to the very dark cloud that is COVID is that it's forcing us to as institutions of all kinds are failing us, right? Either through incompetence, corruption, just meanness, or just by design, right? As they're crumbling and failing us, it allows us an opportunity to assess why and build something new to stand in the breach.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's true everywhere. And I think that, doing ethical creator-owned comics on Kickstarter is an example of that. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one of the things I don't want to get too derailed talking about this, but it is one of the things that we've been freaking out a little bit on the stream, because at the beginning of the pandemic, seeing all the kind of spiraling economic crises and stuff, I kind of started getting my brain going, thinking like, wow, this could really be like an exciting opportunity to change the way capitalism works, to change the way like our society is organized. And we've been talking about all these different ways that we can do that electorally. And it's like, it seems like there's this opportunity now that's just kind of where it's happening more naturally. But now we've seen a kind of on the inverse side of that, we've seen like neoliberals like Joe Biden, like Justin Trudeau, kind of respond to this in a very like kind of milquetoast way without kind of pursuing any of these big major reforms. And at the same time, you have this massive reactionary backlash that are forming these massive conspiracy theories like the Great Reset right now that think that that's what is happening. Like what
is the Great Reset?
It's the thing. Yeah, I know it is cool. The thing that I was just describing, it's the idea that the pandemic was like fake and planned. So like the ruling class can like destroy the ability for people to have like small businesses and live in the suburbs and like institute a authoritarian communist ideology, cultural Marxist. So they think that people like Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau are all part of some like big cabal. It's kind of an offshoot of QAnon.
Gotcha.
But it's interesting because they're freaking out about the thing that is not happening that we're talking about that we would like to see happen. But that's just kind of an interesting way to pressing a little.
It is upsetting, and I think that you mentioned earlier, you kind of alluded earlier to like my and other folks too. I think just generally like this kind of leftward drift that people have been on since, the middle of this decade. Right.
Yeah.
And, a big part of it for me, like kind of like the most recent kind of realization for me was that, because I personally went through, so I was a reactionary objectivist Ayn Rand.
Yeah, we've talked about that. You come from the South, right?
I do come from the South. Yeah, man. I come from Richmond, Virginia. It's where I'm born and raised. All my family is. And I was super into that stuff as a kid. And I spent a lot of time thinking about why that is, right? It was a right-wing conservative environment that I was in generally, just family and school and stuff like that. But I went real hard into the Ayn Rand stuff. And I've tried to think about why that is. And it is, and here's my theory. I was a hyper rational kid, right? And I think a lot of young boys especially are, right? You get very caught up in the idea of like, listen, we got to be logical and we need to be, we need to like just figure things out. And, it's this idea of like a deterministic system where you can just kind of move the pieces in the right way. And that's not a terrible instinct, man, because logic is about drilling down to core assumptions and, and then operating sensibly from those, right? Figure out what we know, and then what can we derive from that, and then that's the truth, right? Yeah. It's really it's Aristotle, and I think it holds up, right? That might be controversial, but I'm an Aristotle fan, right?
Okay.
But and so that was very much my mindset, and the problem with that in the current system, right? When you have these like hyper rational kids, or anybody who's trying to be hyper rational is that
Vulcan mentality, as it's being pointed out in the chat.
maybe a little bit,
Yeah.
you know, but like, I'm not a fucking nerd, but I'm kidding. That's not very nice. I'm just making jokes. I like Star Trek. What's it called? You know, the problem with that is if you put bad data into the system, right?
Yeah.
If you operate from a false assumption. And when I was growing up, you know, and up until very recently, you know, since I don't know, pre-World War II, right? The base assumption, no matter what political party, no matter what, like aside from like very radical stuff, which is much harder to get access to in the 90s than it is now, right? The base level assumption is something that I find profoundly ugly. It is an idea that humans' natural state is competition, right? That everything is solved by markets, right?
Yeah.
Might makes right. Free market neoliberalism, fascism, everything in between, all is predicated on that assumption, right? And if you take that assumption to be true, right, that listen, everything is markets, everything is competition, it's survival of the fittest, it's one wolf trying to kill another wolf in order to kill a deer, right?
Yeah.
If you take that as the truth, well, the only rational place to end up is Ayn Rand and Marquis de Sade, which I also got really into as like a weird college student, right?
Oh, shit.
But like because that it made sense. I was like, look, it's logic. It's only true.
Yeah.
And and I began to see like the problems with that. And I started to do this leftward drift, but I never really something that always bugged me about leftism as I saw it expressed, you know, online because that's where we live, and just in my own head and like how I understood it was that it didn't seem to have a logical basis to me, right?
Yeah.
Like unless you wanted to go a utilitarian route, which I think leads to ugly directions, right? Because there's a lot of nasty stuff you can excuse in the interest of benefiting more people, right? So like just asking, okay, what's best for the most amount of people? That's not sufficient. But I always felt like there was like a logical basing that I wasn't getting. And the fix for me, honestly, was it came from like I feel like I got to credit the Street Fight boys, Brian Quimby and
Brett. Yeah.
Brett Payne, yeah, man, and the community they've built specifically, just in terms of influencing this. But I read the Bread book. I read Peter Kropotkin, Conquest of Bread, and he lays things out in a way that is so clear. It's like Kant or something, right? And that it's a priori, right? It's just like it just drills down to like the base level assumptions. And what it comes down to is, look, there's been a massive misread of Darwin, right? That's what it goes. I'm sorry, I'm getting. Listen, I've been quarantined, and my wife is sick of hearing of this stuff. And you asked me on your stream, and so you are getting both barrels right now.
Hell yeah!
But look,
we love it.
Look, there's been a misread of Darwin. That's the problem. That is the core problem. And people say, "Oh, it's survival of the fittest. Darwin says so. It's science." Punch somebody in the face, right? No. What Darwin said is species survive based on how fit they are, right? It is a false assumption to say that is solely defined by how big their teeth are, how vicious they are, how strong they are, right? That's nonsense because it's not true. If you look at the evidence, if you look at not just humanity, but any species of fungus, right? They survive, they thrive, they find success by working together through cooperation, right?
Yeah.
And not only is that the natural order, which we don't want to make the shoot, what is it? Is that the hereditary fallacy? Genetic fallacy. It's the genetic fallacy, I think. I don't know. It's a fallacy,
I'm gonna
right?
say yes.
Just because something's natural doesn't mean that it's right. You know, alligators eat their young. That's not a good idea, right?
I don't think so.
No. Listen, I don't want to get political.
I don't support that at all. Yeah.
Don't eat your children, please.
No.
Not only is it a natural idea, right? Not only has it been borne out by the evidence to be the best strategy that we work together, but it also is utilitarian. It does help the most people. Everybody ends up better off that way.
Yeah.
It is the moral, ethical thing to do. And that was a lightning bolt for me, man. That shifted everything into place. That is what we're trying to get at with Beef Bros. Because, the whole idea with Beef Bros is these are not guys who are referencing, I can't even, here's how dumb I am. Is it Gramsci or Gramsci? How do I say that guy's name?
I believe Gramsci.
Gramsci.
I think I tried to add an extra little flavor to it to even sound even smarter. Yeah.
You just made it more just ambiguously foreign.
Yeah,
right?
That's
Gramsci.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
The Beef Bros, Huey and Ajax Beef, they're not referencing Gramsci, right? Yeah. Like, it's because they're not bright guys, because they don't need to be. Because I think that that's kind of this ugly idea that, like, oh, leftists are college professors with tweed jackets on, right? That's what a Marxist looks like. It's like, no, dude, you can be a big, dumb, muscly, well-meaning, grinning dude, which that's what the Beef Bros, Huey and Ajax are, and you can get it because it's not difficult. It's super simple, and it's this. Be nice, be generous, be kind, help each other, because that's what humans are supposed to do. That's what all creatures are supposed to do. And it's like, and it is, I say that even having given you my like long, like diatribe on like where it comes from. And I feel ridiculous saying that because it feels like such like a naive, silly, hippy dippy, not like new age nonsense to say, right? Because it's something that we were taught as kids and that was drilled into us, but we grew to like find it like facile and not representative of the complexities of the real world. But that's part of the trick that's been played on us, man.
Yeah,
that's all part of the con too, right?
Yeah. And that's like when we talk about how like, oh, we can't possibly have another economic system because it just goes against human nature. And we're really just cutthroat. We just want to climb over the next side. But that's what we've been like trained to do under our current economic model. And I think you're right that what actually constitutes human nature is like the opposite of that. And we see that in like big 100%. Tragedies, right? When there's big forest fires or big natural disasters. What people do,
don't act in accordance with their economic interests.
Exactly. And they don't, or they're like all these kind of artificial constructs that have like been put in place to keep people apart. What most people do, their instinct is to go in their community and be like, how can we help? How can we like work together to resolve this? That's what people like revert to. And that's been slowly beaten out of us over generations and generations of capitalism.
And that was a thing that I realized too. We're working on Beef Bros. It's like, look, I'm embarrassed to say this stuff, and that's awful. That's miserable. That's so disheartening and depressing, right? And I think it goes hand in hand with, this idea of. I think it's a problem that is especially acute for men, right? Because a lot of these ideas that we're talking about, kindness, generosity,
that's weakness.
Showing affection and love, these are things that have been gendered and coded as feminine and weak for men to do, right? And that's part of the con too. That's another part of the trick.
Yep.
And so Beef Bros is really designed. It is a, make no mistake. I had somebody ask me on Twitter, they're like, hey, I'm confused. Like, is there like violence, or do they solve everything through violence, like non-violent means? Brother, there is violence, right? It is a superhero comic book. Yeah. There's punching and explosions, and it is like, it's not like watching like Saw or something, right? But like, like it's not gruesome, but it's a superhero comic. It is that, right? It is a big, dumb, fun, funny superhero comic. But the purpose of it, right? Like the thesis of it, and like what we went into it trying to do was take a couple of friendly, not entirely bright, not even incredibly well-informed guys, but who truly believe what we're talking about, right? If you can help somebody, you do it. People should work together, period. And they believe that to its core, and then everything branches out from that. And the interesting thing about that is this is not a controversial notion, right? It's the golden rule writ large, right? Like this is a thing we all learned as kids. But if you actually follow it, if you actually live your life in accordance to that and stand up for it when necessary, which the Beef Bros do, it brings you into conflict with everything. Absolutely everything. Because every single one of these institutions and hierarchies that you were alluding to, they run a counter to this, right? They're diametrically opposed to what we're talking about. And that's what Beef Bros is. They don't have complicated theory, but they do understand this core distinction and this core truth, and they build everything off of that. And in the process have to beat up sadistic cops.
Sometimes it's necessary.
Landlords, corrupt business, corrupt governments, omnipowerful businesses, all of it, and that's the idea.
Yeah.
Beef bros, baby.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, it's true. I mean, sometimes even in some of the theory that we read, sometimes you will notice that that is an element of it as well. The fact that we have to fight back against the people that are doing the oppression. So one thing that's kind of interesting about this idea also is that, the idea of like subverting superhero comics is not like a new thing in comic books. It's been going on since the 80s. Alan Moore and Frank Miller even, and all these ideas of taking these traditional golden age ideas of like the superheroes and right and wrong, but we're going to make it like dark, and we're going to show how, or The Boys is like a modern example, right? We're going to show how actually superheroes are really fascist and kind of violent and fucked up. And what I think is cool about this idea of Beef Bros is kind of, it's taking that idea of like, we're going to subvert the traditional idea of what we think of as a superhero comic, but kind of go in this opposite direction in it. And it's not dark and brooding, but it's the bright neon colors and like positivity and kind of taking that subversion, but going in a different direction with it, which I think is really refreshing.
So I'm glad you brought this up, honestly, because this is a thing that in talking with people about my work, a thing that I'm really learning about it is about my work. That sounds so arrogant and pompous, but you invited me on your show. My wife's sick of hearing about it. You're getting it all. It's a thing. So this came up a lot in discussions of my last comic with Fico Ossio as a co-creator, No One Left to Fight. And he's actually the color. If you like the colors on Beef Bros, Fico is to thank for that. He's killing it. But it was a riff on Dragon Ball specifically, and fight manga and anime generally.
Yeah.
Stuff like Naruto and Fist of the North Star and Baki.
And there was elements of wrestling in that as well, like just like with,
sure. Well, I think there's a lot of similarities, but that's a different conversation. We could do that next.
We'll get to that next.
I had people not infrequently be like, "Oh yeah, this is a deconstruction of Dragon Ball, or it's a deconstruction of shonen fight manga," and I would try not to be the guy who's like, "Well, actually," but right now I'm going to be right. I'm going to take this opportunity because I think it's an interesting. Because I've thought a lot about it. I think it's an interesting distinction. I love that stuff. I love deconstructionist superhero comics. Right. Alan Moore was profoundly influential to me. I love his work. But that's not really what I do. I'm finding, and it's not what we did in No One Left to Fight. It's not what we're doing in Beef Bros. So the difference, as I see it, is what Alan Moore did. And so I think what Alan Moore and Frank Miller did are very different things.
Yeah, of course.
I think that both of them were reacting to 80s Reagan America, right? They were reacting to the fallout from the 1970s when there was a general loss of faith in institutions and structures in American society, right? Coming on the heels of Vietnam and Watergate. They were reacting to this renewed sense of individualism and also law and order, right? That Reagan brought in. And they were holding up a mirror to that kind of sense of nihilism, right? Where, because it is nihilism. It's a lack of belief in anything except for rules for the sake of rules, right? And Frank Miller held up a mirror by basically creating Batman Dirty Harry, right? Or Batman Death Wish.
Yeah.
It was a story about, like a lot of Frank Miller's work, it's a story about the lengths a violent man will go to in order to do what's right. Which is a super fun narrative, but maybe a little, not exactly politically aligned with how I feel, right?
Sure, yeah.
Meanwhile, what Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons in Watchmen were doing was they were also holding up a mirror to Reagan America, but they were doing it in the form of an anarchic broadside against authoritarian superheroes.
Yeah.
Right? Now,
against the very kind of figures that Frank Miller put out there and
exactly. So they were doing very different things, and I don't think that Dark Knight Returns is, I don't think Frank Miller's a fascist. I think that Frank Miller's probably a pretty liberal guy, honestly. In the actual sense of like a centrist liberal. But the problem with this is the struggle, right? This is one of the difficult things of depicting things like powerful authoritative figures and war, right? It's impossible to not make it look awesome,
Yeah, yeah,
It is.
yeah.
If you're doing it well, it looks cool. It looks cool. War looks cool as hell on movies, right? It's inspiring, and it's rousing, and it shows you the strength of human nature and how domineering we can be. We need, like,
And in many ways, that's been a very deliberate project to like manufacture consent for
right?
violent imperialism and
But
stuff like that.
and I think it's melded. It's deep seated in both a cultural sense and also maybe even kind of like a lizard brain sense, right? Of wanting to cheer for the victor, and as a result, if you look at Dark Knight Returns, there are people who take the wrong lessons from it very easily, right? They see Batman, they're like, oh yeah, you know what Batman is? Batman is at best when he's grizzled and mean and breaking bones.
Yeah, just beating the shit out of some like poor guys that are just picking up some henchmen work in order to pay the bills,
Yeah, man. Like that and that becomes the thing. Meanwhile, as anybody who takes a serious look at Watchmen understands this is an anarchic text, right? This is a text that explores the failures and fundamental ugliness of most contemporary institutions, right? Get lambasted in its pages. But most people who say Watchmen is their favorite book, they love Rorschach.
Yeah.
They love the villain.
Who was very much like that kind of a figure, like Batman.
They love the reactionary, bigoted villain monster. So that's the danger, right? That's always the danger with good satire, right? Is people think that Jonathan Swift actually wants the Irish to eat their babies, right? That's a literary reference for you fine folks out there.
There we go.
That's the danger of good satire, and that's not really what I do. I like satire, but Beef Bros and No One Left to Fight also by extension, these are not satirical works. Beef Bros is not a deconstruction of superheroes. It is a reclaiming of superheroes. Because the fact of the matter is superheroes used to be populist working class fantasies. If you look at Superman, the first one, that's what he was, man. He was beating up landlords. He was pushing back against like nasty predatory criminals in the community. He was beating up wife beaters. He was a hero. He was an actual hero. And
even like Lex Luthor is like an industrialist, right? Like evil industrialist.
He's a billionaire. Who else would he be fighting? He's
exactly.
A really rich guy. Similarly, Captain Marvel, now Shazam, like the original Captain Marvel, who eclipsed Superman in popularity for a while, it was the same thing. It was a childlike vision of a superhero, and it was fantastical and whimsical and optimistic and kind. And those were its defining features. Meanwhile, you've got Wonder Woman, who was created by a self-help author and psychoanalyst who like used Wonder Woman in the late 30s, to espouse, like at the time, radical feminist ideas, right? Beef Bros isn't us hijacking superheroes. It's not us deconstructing superheroes. It's us doing with superheroes what they were meant to be done with. I could have worded that better. It's returning superheroes to their origins, to their rightful place. This is how superheroes are meant to operate. They are not meant to be tools of institutions. They are not meant to be protecting the interests of governments and businesses and academies. Right? They don't exist to protect institutions from people. They exist to protect people from institutions.
Yeah.
That's what superheroes are supposed to be. And that is what Watchmen is about. Watchmen is about the failure of contemporary then 80s neoliberal society, and it used the failure of superheroes to demonstrate that, right? That's what Watchmen is about. Beef Bros is about the solution. It's about fixing it. It's about solving this problem, right? Instead of illuminating it, it's about saying, look, how do we fix this? And this has been and this gets back to what I was talking about earlier in terms of that like Kropotkin lightning bolt to my brain. This has been a big realization for me. It's like, look, like I don't want to get off on like a voting tangent because it's just exhausting and everybody's had enough of it.
We've heard a lot about that over the last couple of weeks and months.
It's enough.
Just a little.
I need like a 4-year break before we talk about voting again, right?
You're not getting it. You're not getting it.
I know.
Right away.
No, fuck me.
We're transitioning right away into the next voting.
But God. The fact of the matter is, if we want to solve anything, if we want to fix things, we cannot expect somebody to come save us. right? And I think I think that's a mistake that people all along the political spectrum make, including leftists, right? I think that a lot of the anti-voting sentiment came from a place of, look, we vote for a president because they're supposed to come in and fix things, and there's not a president available who's going to come and fix things. So there you go, voting's useless. And I think that that's still predicated on ugly assumptions, man.
Yeah.
The assumption there is still, oh, we need a president to lead us. We need a leader. We need somebody to come. We need this institution to come in and fix stuff for us. We have to trust in this system and this hierarchy. When the fact of the matter is that system and hierarchy is rotten to its core. And even worse than the fact that it's broken and rotten, it's working as designed. This is what it's supposed to do, right? This isn't a surprise to anybody who's actually
that it produces this level
of
alienation. Yeah, that's the whole point.
This is how it's supposed to work. If we want to fix anything, if we want to solve anything, it has to start with us, right? And that's what Beef Bros is about too. It's about building community. It's about starting small, starting from this kernel of an idea, something anybody can understand, and how powerful that idea is if you hold fast to it and continue to treat people nicely and spread that idea outwards. That's what it's about. So, the first issue of Beef Bros, in the sample pages, you can see them beating up on cops who are picking on an unhoused guy.
Yeah,
right?
we've seen some comments in the chat about the spread of them just like folding the cops in half with brutal groin attacks.
There's violence in Beef Bros. I said this earlier. I feel like people didn't believe me.
We got it on the screen right now.
Good, good. It starts there. That's the starting point. It goes from there to pushing back against landlords, and it keeps getting bigger. And that's the whole idea, is say, look, if we start with this really small thing, right? Helping out a homeless guy. If we start with helping out a homeless guy and we stick to that logic, I'm sorry, unhoused person. I'm still getting used to the language.
That's right? Okay. That's okay. We got it.
It is okay. It is okay. I think, I think that's a good thing to acknowledge when we screw up, right? Because it's okay to screw up. An unhoused person. If we start with that, if we operate based on the assumptions that led us to believe that was the right and moral thing to do, if we continue to operate on those assumptions and act logically from those, how far can it take us? And man, the answer is however many issues of this thing we can convince people to give us money to do.
Yeah.
That's how far we can take it,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a really cool vision for the superhero comic. I love the art. And I wanted to, because we talked about wrestling, how you got started in broadcasting, doing a wrestling call-in show. It was a big stepping stone for me, getting involved in freelance writing and stuff. And it's obviously an influence on you and your work. You saw it in No One Left to Fight, and you really see it in this as well. And especially the era of wrestling that I definitely grew up watching in like the late 80s, early 90s, the neon spandex, that whole look. You can totally see how that's such a big like influence on like the look of these characters.
We had a bonkers Pinterest board, and there was a lot of Steiner. There was a lot of Steiner
brothers. Yeah, I'm seeing rockers like
a lot of rockers.
Marty Jannetty, he was my man in the early 90s.
Warrior, of course, man.
Ultimate Warrior, of course. Yeah. But it's interesting too, because you're talking about how you're bringing superhero comics back to the source, and with the wrestling element, it's similar to that as well, right? Because wrestling went through this whole period of becoming way more dark and nuanced, and with these shades of gray, and like populating these like anti-hero characters, which is fun. We like that. But in a way, it's harkening back to the traditional idea of wrestling, the good guys and bad guys, the bright colors, the kind of kid-friendly stuff. So it's interesting, kind of the parallel with both superheroes and wrestling, and the way that there's a kind of a crossover there.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? There's a lot of fascinating parallels between superhero comics and professional wrestling.
And politics.
And politics too. I think there's different lessons to learn, though. Probably, I think they're useful. I think they're, I think the big lesson that I take from professional wrestling is that it is, and this is a thing I think a lot of folks kind of forget or gloss over or allow themselves to be fooled into believing isn't the case. Wrestling is, at its core, exploitive. It is. It's how it's designed, right?
Yeah.
It is from top to bottom, I'm not just talking about like unscrupulous promoters, right? Though that's certainly part of it, but the actual interaction with the crowd, it's a con. Wrestling is a trick, wrestling is not a play. It's not a prestige TV show. It's none of these things that people compare it to in order to legitimize their fandom of it, right? It is something else entirely. It's not improvisational Brechtian theater, right? It's none of these things. I've heard all of that. It's not theater in the round. It is a carnival game. It's a trick, right? It is designed. All of it is designed to make you believe that you know what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And there are countless layers of this, right? And you start at the very top with the kid who's so young they don't realize this is fixed, right? And then you go all the way up to like Dave Meltzer, right, who knows everything about it, but still gets lured into believing things that promoters and wrestlers want him to believe because it's impossible not to, because this is their job. And that's the joy of professional wrestling, is this exploitation and these lies and these like layered falsehoods that you get to unravel and kind of, the most fun thing that can happen as a wrestling fan is getting worked. Is getting fooled, is thinking like, oh yeah, that guy's got an injury and he's out for 8 months. And I saw the dirt sheet report about it, and then he rips off his cast and he's ready to wrestle, right? Like that is the coolest thing that happens as a wrestling fan. And that's by design, like and I think that's why a lot of people on the left really respond to wrestling well, is that it is a potent metaphor for capitalism, in that it is to its core about exploitation and tricking the mark, and that that like it's what they call wrestling fans marks. It's about fooling the mark into going along with this con, even though it's to their detriment. And that describes capitalism too, my man.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but just going back to the style, though, I really do appreciate the
sorry, you were trying to talk about aesthetics. I was like, well, let me tell you something about exploitation.
I love that shit too. And like, that's the thing it's not really in relation to the comic book analogy, but I always, as a wrestling fan, like those are always like the pipe bomb, those moments where that gray area appears between what's real and what you think is a performance. And then all of a sudden as a viewer, you're not really sure where that line is anymore. And you're not sure of what you're watching is part of the con and what it is real. That's always really fun. Man. Yeah, that's the best.
That's your favorite, dude. Man, if another one of the best things to ever happen as a wrestling fan is to see something and not be sure if one of the people in the ring is taking liberties with the other one.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing better. Like, listen, we don't want to see anybody get hurt, except we kind of do, right? Like, there's nothing better than watching this and be like, oh wow, that guy's actually mad. That guy's actually angry, and he's working really stiff, and he really is just laying into that guy. There's nothing better than that, because that's why we watch it, man. We watch it for. It's not suspension of disbelief. It is. I don't even know what to call. I wish I had a better. I was hoping a clever term would come to me that didn't. It's something else, though, man.
Good effort.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, man, are there questions? I don't have a ton of time left, but are there questions from people in the stream? Is that a thing?
That's a great segue. That's why you're a classic. You're familiar with live streaming and broadcasting.
Listen, man, I'm not trying to do your job for you, but give me some fucking questions.
The chat's been very lively while you've been talking. A lot of people interested in what you're saying. A few people, certain individuals in the chat have been kind of going kind of off topic, getting a little out of control in there.
That's fun. Which I respect. Listen.
Well,
as a non-hierarchical person myself, I respect that. Go nuts.
I guess. But yeah, if you're in the chat, while we still have Aubrey for another few minutes, if you have a question about his work or about Beef Bros, you want to ask, I'm going to drop the link in the chat.
Hair care regimen, anything.
Yeah, hair care regimen. Okay, with the mace you're holding, how about the mace? What's the weight of the mace? Oh, yeah. Seagull Bomb in the chat wants to know about the weight of the mace.
Cool.
You're wielding in that video.
Thank you for asking that question. So the one I'm using in the video is a 15-pounder. Right. That's my first mace. So it's very special to me. And at the time, that was the only one I had. Like, shortly after recording that video, I actually upgraded to a 25-pounder. And let me tell you, it is alarmingly heavy. And I did it on Monday, and I'm still kind of jammed up from it. It's so for people who are like, what are you talking about? You're just holding this goofy rod. Well, here's the thing, man. It's steel, right? And so it's this big, long rod, and at the end of it, it has a 25-pound weight, right? So 25 pounds isn't a ton. But when you put it at the end of this big rod and you hold the very bottom of it and then like swing it around your head like a crazy person, then it becomes very difficult.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've recently upgraded, and it's a little too heavy for me, but I'll get there. I'm working on it.
Okay. So Sparrowhawk TV says, "What is the strength stat requirement on that?" So I don't know if you need an upgraded strength stat for the new one, or what would you say about that?
Listen, man. Listen, it depends on the system, brother. I play 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Although I just got in the mail Pathfinder 2 Player's Handbook. Once the Beef Bros campaign finishes, I'm just going to read rules for a month. Very excited about that. That's the thing about all anarchists. We actually really like rules, but just in the abstract. So what was the question? Oh, the strength score. So a commoner has a strength score of 8, right? Average for an adventurer would be 10, man. I don't know. I don't see myself as an adventurer, really. To be able to use that mace as like a weapon, man, and that's the thing. I can't imagine using something that heavy as a weapon just because it's so slow to move around. I'm thinking you're needing like a minimum like 16 strength score in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition in order to use a 25-pound mace as a weapon. Okay. You know what? I would have to get my player after I get up. I was looking to see if I had it here with me. I don't. We can. It's in the other room. I'm not going to do this, but here's if I was DMing this, here's how I would rule it. I would say look at the equipment section in the PHB and see if there are any weapons that weigh 25 pounds, like maybe a glaive or something.
Okay.
Right. So it's like, and then base the ruling on that. You know, if a glaive is 25 pounds, I feel like it's probably not. I would allow you to use it with heavy weapon restrictions, right? So like a small creature would have to roll with disadvantage. But if there aren't any weapons in the PHB that are 25 pounds, I would probably DM Fiat apply some strength requirements to use it for sure. And I would say a strength of 16 count on me. You're gonna have a
good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Okay,
that's my provisional ruling.
Okay, sorry, you're getting interrupted right at the end. That was very interesting. We appreciate it.
You're gonna have good old Rob.
Barfcast TV just gifted 5 subs to the community, which is so generous. Thank you very much, Barfcast TV. And you're getting interrupted by my alert.
What does that get you? Does that get you money?
A couple bucks, yeah.
Nice. Thanks, Barfsack.
Yeah, Barfcast TV.
Barfcast. No, it's Barfsack now. Sorry.
You can count on
that was like one of those names.
That's also a provisional ruling of mine. You're Barfsack now.
That was like one of those conservative names that they had for Obama, Barfsack O'Crumbo, they would call him.
Oh, was it?
Unlike conservative Twitter. Thanks a lot, Barfsack O'Crumbo. Yeah. No, but thank you very much, Barfcast, for the 5 subs. That's very generous. And I hope, again, I'm going to put the Kickstarter link for Beef Bros in the chat. If anyone can contribute to that Kickstarter campaign, it's a really exciting project. It's been great to talk to you about this, Aubrey.
Thanks, brother.
You have a sign off.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, man.
It was a pleasure. It was really cool.
I know, man. We don't talk enough anymore, and it was really nice to get to. No, like it's true. Everybody's doing their own things. It's been a stressful year for folks, so no, it's really good to it's really good to chit chat with you again. And even if you don't support Beef Bros, come find me on Twitter. And
please do.
Pals there.
I'll drop your link into the chat. I should have told Nightbot to take care of this.
Nightbutt and Barfsack, that classic duo.
Yeah. Do you have a final message of in case anyone tuned in? You're gonna get going. We've been watching the video for Beef Bros in the background. Why should people contribute to this Kickstarter campaign? What's Beef Bros all about? Before you have to go, one final elevator pitch for Beef Bros and why people need to support this project.
Beef Bros is returning superheroes to their original purpose, which is inspiring and empowering people against institutions. That's true in the subtext of it. That's true in the text of it, where you see in the art is the Beef Bros beating up mean cops who are picking on an unhoused person. It is also true in the structure of Beef Bros. It is creator owned. We are paying everyone equitably. If we make more money, the team makes more money. We're doing this the right way. It's comic books done right. It's big, explosive, action-packed superhero comics that you do not have to feel guilty or cringe about enjoying. Beef Bros, Kickstarter. Right now, you got one more week to get in on the aspirational leftist superhero comic.
And now we're getting requests. Maybe it can be a new project for you. A Nightbutt and Barfsack comic. That could be like kind of a duo, maybe some kind of like a
man.
A buddy cop thing, or like some kind of a. We don't want to do cops anymore. That's more
the wheels. The wheels are turning.
Yeah. Okay. Think about
next time. I'll have some details on Nightbutt and Barfsack.
Thanks a lot, Aubrey. It was great to talk to you, man.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon. Okay. Take care.
Bye.